Thank our panel for taking time.
University.
As Jim said, a very mobile work.
But of course, if you look at where we are in terms of
corporation tax is going to be reduced to 17%, and that's good. I think that attracts business.
So, if I may, I'd like to invite Fiona Hyslop to get this morning's debate underway. Fiona.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this morning's debate. I don't know about your timing, but to manage to get this topic hard on the heels of the vote only yesterday on the legislative consent motion on the Scotland Bill, I think was it was either foresight, you obviously knew something we didn't, that you managed to get the timing so accurate. Also, happy St Patrick's Day. One of the reasons that I mentioned that is that we see economic growth and the opportunities for Scotland and corporate Scotland through that prism of innovation, investment, tackling inequalities and internationalisation. And it's only been in the last few weeks that we've actually officially opened one of our first innovation and investment hubs, which is in Dublin, which is about making sure we can encourage the opportunities between Scotland and Ireland in a number of economic and other ways. In terms of the position of Scotland, we're looking at a challenging environment for the economy, as you well know. We've shown a reasonable degree of resilience to date, but longer term, one of the main barriers to improving economic performance is improving the productivity of our economy. Now, interestingly, productivity in Scotland has grown by 4.4% since 2007, compared to 0.2% since 2007 in the UK, but still a big challenge to Scotland, and a thing that we would really want to focus on in improving our activity. One of the areas of doing that is to ensure that we become a more equal society, and one of the challenges we have is actually an increasing agenda that people identify, not just in Scotland but globally, of making sure that we can tackle competitiveness by actually also tackling inequality and inclusive growth, really much as very much a focus for a resilient economy, resilient society, spend in the economy, confidence in the economy, confidence in society, and taking our country forward. So one of the things that we'll be looking at is how do we help deliver a more competitive environment, but also using all the talents of our people, and not least women in the workplace as well, in terms of, again, how we can increase productivity for everybody by using the talents of everybody in our companies and our society. In terms of our taxation area, in terms of the system that we'll be developing in Scotland, Adam Smith set out 4 guidelines on taxes which hold true today. The taxes should be certain, convenient, administratively efficient and proportionate to the ability to pay. And those principles will underpin the Scottish Government's approach. And interesting, this topic is about the new powers for Holyrood. Which new powers? Because the ones that are coming into effect, the ones that are most obviously an economic driver, are the ones that came from the last Scotland Bill, not necessarily from the one that is in the process of being finalised. The Scottish rate of income tax, on the 11th of February, the Scottish Parliament voted for a motion setting the tax at 10% for 16-17. That means that there will be stability between Scotland and the rest of the UK. But one of the reasons that the current income tax powers have been kept at that rate is the inflexibility that we have in the current system, because the one that we've got just now will mean that an increase or cut in one tax band automatically applies to others. And it's that inflexibility that is one of the reasons why Laura Smith recommended further devolution of income tax policy. New powers over income tax rates and bands, once the Scotland Bill is enacted, this one will come into fruition from 1718. But of course, if you look at where we are in terms of the powers that are coming already from the last Scotland Bill, clearly our intention to reduce air passenger duty, very, very important indeed for this economy and to encourage and support business in Scotland. We've launched our consultation only this week about the mechanism by which we can try and reduce it. It's one of the most expensive tax of its kind in Europe, not tackled by the UK government in the budget yesterday, and is one that we need to look at if we want to have that again, going back to that internationalisation agenda, making sure in terms of investment, innovation, we know those companies that are more likely to invest and innovate are the ones that are already having an international profile. So encouraging more of our companies to be on that agenda is really important. And I spend a lot of my time as the Cabinet Secretary for External Affairs encouraging direct routes, and more activity for that international agenda. The other areas, land and buildings transaction tax, it's the first new tax power we've had in more than 300 years. We've made it more simpler and more progressive. 93% of house buyers pay no tax or less tax than they would have been under the case under stamp duty. So we are looking at opportunities to stimulate markets where we can, and obviously that's what we need to try and do. The new bill, to me, looking at it, there's marginal issues for economic activity, but we need to try and grab those that we can. More flexibility on capital investment and borrowing, very important. If you look at the proposals from the UK government in relation to our budget, we're going to have a significant smaller amount of capital available going forward. In fact, by 1920, there's going to be 17% less capital available from the Scottish budget than there was in 2009-10. That's £600 million less. So how we use our opportunities for investment is absolutely critical. So we're trying to do that already through financial transactions tax, even in the culture portfolio we're using them. We need to look at what we might want to do further in terms of capital investment, using the flexibility of more borrowing powers, but we're also in many ways just compensating for reductions that are come from elsewhere. So what I want to, I suppose my last message to you is, yes, we want to use what powers we have. Yes, we need to try and ensure we tackle all the areas that we need to, where we can, using the powers that we can. But let's be realistic about what those powers are. A lot of it is just compensating for those that have been taken away in other areas. And it's really important that we try and apply our can-do approach with the limited powers that we do have to make sure we have that impetus. It might need a bit of ingenuity, a bit of creativity, but as the Cabinet Secretary also for Culture, I'm sure Scotland can rise to that occasion. Thank you.
Thank our panel for taking time.
Universities
As Jim said, a very mobile work.
But of course, if you look at where we are in terms of
Corporation tax is going to be reduced to 17%, and that's good. I think that attracts businesses.